A very good morning to all of you joining us on this webinar, and very, very special warm welcome to all our listeners and webinarees. You see, that's a new word. When you join a webinar, you're a webinaree, right? My name is Aki Anastasiou, and on behalf of Crusaders, it's great to have you guys with us. Very warm welcome as well to our special guests who are joining us. We've got the CEO of Crusaders, Stegmann. We've got Pavlo Phitidis, who is synonymous with 702. He is the Mr. Business, the Mr. Advice on small business, medium-sized business, you name it, the most knowledgeable guy I know on business. And of course, last but by no means least, we've got Akhona, Qengqe, who is the Franchising Association of South Africa chair lady. And really great to have our guests. How are you guys doing? I see you all there. You can unmute and say hello. Pavlo, Sean, Akhona, how are you guys doing?
Hi, Aki. Very good, thank you.
There you all are. Yeah. So listen, it's really nice to see you all, and I'm sure this Zoom meeting is no stranger to any of you, right? I mean, this is the new normal. This terrible pandemic, COVID-19, that's going to be the name. I reckon it's going to be the term of the year when they announce the Google thing. But what a tough year it's been for all of us, and I mean, you know, it's interesting to see which businesses have thrived, which businesses haven't thrived. The economy is in a big mess. People are being retrenched. People are getting their salaries reduced. People are looking for new opportunities. And that's the key here, guys, is that the world is full of opportunity. So just in 30 seconds, I'm going to ask each of you, how has the lockdown been for you personally? Let's start with you, Akhona.
Thank you, Aki. Wow, it's been life-changing. To say the least. I have had to change my own behaviors. I've had to change the way that I work, the way that I live, and I've certainly have not played in the past 6 months. So it definitely has been life-altering for me.
Oh, that's awesome. And what about yourself, Pavlo? I mean, you know what? You've been very busy. You've actually written another book during this lockdown.
I did. Aki, you know, it's so we work with businesses here in South Africa, in the US, the UK, and the EU. And fortunately, I've got 2 in Hong Kong. So we expected this already in December. And since we've been locked down, it's been honestly, for my entire team, sounds terrible. And I'm really not a slave driver, but it has been 12-hour days, 6 days a week consistently. And that's what it's required in order to stay where you are and get slightly ahead.
That's awesome. And Sean, it's really, really good to see you, CEO of Crusaders. It's been an interesting time for you guys as well. How's lockdown been for you personally, on a family, from a family perspective and business side?
Okay, I think personally it's been tough on everyone. I think people didn't see it coming. We did the 3 weeks lockdown, which everyone bought into. I think it got a bit tougher as the lockdown went on. You know, myself being the CEO of a company where everyone's in lockdown and, you know, people are not making money, put stress and strain on you. You've got to reinvent yourself. I think leadership has needed to be reinvented as well. So, yeah, on a personal level, it took some deep digging.
Well, listen, I mean, just talking about your particular business, I mean, you were closed for about, 66 days, something like that. Crusaders, and it's like 3 months for a business to close. I mean, I've got a franchise as well. I was closed for around 3 months. It was like a torpedo hit my business. We're slowly seeing the recovery. But tell us from a business point of view, as the CEO of Crusaders, how was it for you? And what kind of changes are you seeing in your businesses?
Well, you know, like most people, we had to lock down for the 66 days. That was the level 3 lockdown. It was tough. We prepared ourselves as best we could, and we gave our franchisees the best advice we could around securing their stores and keeping them informed. You know, we've got a large network of stores, so we had to make sure we assisted franchisees by guiding them through the TERS payment relief systems, you know, relief from their landlords, from their banks, negotiating terms with the landlords. We were very involved in that. We even used our legal firm to support the franchisees in conversations with the landlords. And then we used the time to kind of strategize, you know, new ways of working as a group that would be different in a post-COVID world or in a COVID world. And that was really about digitizing areas of our business that had been on the radar pre-COVID. but kind of got fast-tracked and became imperatives like, e-commerce, buying and selling via WhatsApp, using WhatsApp video. So that's really what we've done, in that time, and it's borne fruit.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. I mean, Akhona, you head up the South African, the Franchising Association of South Africa. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a big group, and so many franchises being represented, and I'm sure that many people are kind of looking at franchising, and franchising is like a model worldwide that is got such a high success rate of people investing in businesses. But during a time like this, during a time like crisis, I mean, I've seen quite a few franchises close down. Many businesses haven't survived this. How are you seeing these industries, Akhona, from the Franchising Association of South Africa? Are you guys getting a lot of calls? Are you seeing massive changes in the industry? What are you seeing?
Aki, we're certainly seeing a lot more interest in our business model. And I think, like you said, it's a trusted business model. It's a bankable business model. Funders love our concept. And I think what we've also just seen coming out of COVID is we've tended to fare better than other businesses and startups, purely because during times of uncertainty, and most importantly, when we've all had to change our habits and hygiene has had to be heightened, especially in social spaces, is people have gravitated towards brands that they know, brands they trust, and brands that are known to enforce processes, systems, and standards. And that's exactly what franchising do, is what you find in the one outlet, you find in the next one. So there's a level of trust that consumers tend to associate with franchise brands. And I guess that's why a lot of people are looking at actually investing in the franchise model, because you're investing in a business that already has equity, that already has people that can trust, and especially when there's such uncertainty right now.
Awesome stuff. Now, Pavlo Phitidis, you're no stranger to small business. You are Mr. Small Business. You are Mr. Business Advice South Africa. You've written 2 books, and I've listened to your programs and listened to you talking to Bruce. If you had to put your finger on the pulse on the South African economy, where we are today, how business is faring up, if you were the doctor of business and you had to give us a reading, a medical reading on where we are right now, how would you put this into perspective, what COVID has done to business and to people personally?
It has completely shattered lives, and it shattered businesses. There are really 3 categories of business that we looked at. We looked at businesses in what we referred to as the high-risk economy. So businesses that are very consumer-facing, that are in the social economy, the environment where, for example, retail, event management, transport, travel, hospitality, a lot of businesses over there have been completely eliminated and eradicated. You then had the medium-range businesses, largely those in the industrial economy. They were able to fare by simply existing, not growing, reducing slightly, but simply existing. And then there were very, very few in the green essential economy that did well. But the bottom line is this, is that the SME economy as a whole has borne most of the brunt. And there are 3 reasons for it. The first is, leading up to the COVID shock that we all experienced in our economy, the general South African economy has been in regression. Secondly, especially in the retail space, and especially in those retail franchises, where you rely on reliable, predictable, affordable electricity to keep your stores open, there's been inconsistent supply of electricity. And then the final piece is that the overall general economy, without an economic growth strategy in play, there has been no growth. What is so sad about COVID is I saw early shoots in the SME economy of regaining lost ground from the previous 2 years. When this arrived, most of those businesses in the SME economy had no reserves left. They'd been depleted over the last year, 2 years, and they really faced their demise in the first 3 months of what we've been through since lockdown.
Gee, that is so interesting. Hey, by the way, everybody, I want us to make it as interactive as possible. So everybody that's in the webinar at the moment, won't you just give us a shout out? Just introduce yourself. Say, hello, my name is Mike, and this is what I do for a living. Just a line. We'd love to hear from you as well, that you are joining us here, and just tell us a little bit about yourself. Just introduce yourself and tell us what you do and your name. And we'd appreciate that. It's great to have all of our listeners joining us on this particular webinar, and it's very interactive. So at any time, if anybody has any specific questions you want to ask, please do so. And a big thanks once again to Cash Crusaders for making this particular webinar possible. And thank you for those insights, Pavlo. Sean, I see in one of your articles, where was I reading this article? I'm trying to remember exactly where I saw that article, but it'll come to me. And it's interesting, businesses during this time period. I've seen hardware businesses, for example, traditional businesses like butcheries, for example, they have shown record growth. They've had record numbers in the months of June and July and August. And Cash Crusaders has seen similar growth, during this lockdown period as we've emerged out of lockdown. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was an article that we were quoted in the Sunday Times about our growth in our new goods of 50% in June and 42% in July. And then our overall growth in July was 16% turnover growth. So we've been blessed. Aki, we started this business in 1996 with a single store, buying and selling secondhand goods and offering loans. And we franchised the concept 2 years later. And 2 years after that, we introduced the new goods, which was our third profit center. So we now operate on a 3 profit center model, and we're a business that's doing 2 billion rand turnover per annum, more than that, of 230 stores. So we've got a very resilient model. The balance of the 3 profit centers is what makes us this resilience. It's not enough just to have the second-hand sales and that buying power. Our new goods assist us to generate the revenues as well. And our performance of new goods has surpassed all our expectations. It really, post-lockdown, we've had stellar growth, record months in terms of new goods growth. Our second-hand business is a bit slow to recover, but we understand that was because of the payment holidays and that people had. Mm-hmm. And the advantage of the Cash Crusaders model is a franchisee who opens his doors for the first time, they don't have the second-hand stock. So your new goods profit center enables traction immediately, where the guy can be making sales off the bat, straight off the bat. And that would then cover rent and salaries and your expenses that you need to pay. So we've been blessed. Our private label new goods is certainly a valued profit center of ours. We've become a trusted brand, and we've seen excellent growth after lockdown because we are that trusted brand. Our private label brands are becoming synonymous as name brands in their own, like Dixon's. Awesome. And then that 16% growth is a testament to that and of turnover growth, and that's compounded by that 50% new goods growth that we've seen.
Gee, that's so interesting. That is so interesting. Akhona, are you seeing kind of similar trends in the franchising industry? I mean, 16% growth is pretty good. I'm not aware of too many businesses that experience that kind of growth.
Yeah, Aki, so I must call out 2 industries specifically within the franchise sector where we've seen phenomenal growth. The first one is on the fast food side. Obviously, yes. Having come out of level 5 into level 4, there was a lot of pent-up demand on the fast food side, and people literally, the deliveries where we grew that particular channel double-digit, literally, from where it was before lockdown. So that's the first one. The second one has been interesting, the second-hand car market. So people are exiting, kind of buying new cars. They're getting into second-hand cars. And I think what lockdown has made people see is actually investing in a car that's been parked in a garage for 4 to 5 months is not worth it. And so people are downgrading, selling their cars, etc. So definitely for us, that's where we've seen the movement and the growth.
It's so interesting you say that. I took my car for a service the other day to Toyota, and the guy was telling me is that people aren't buying new cars. they're extending the lifespan of their current vehicles, and they, adding more value by, servicing them and making sure that they are, good to go on the road. So it's a very interesting observation you made there, and ties in exactly with what I've heard. Hey, shout out Tamara, you're a freelance writer. Who else is joining us? Paul from the Concrete Foundation crew. Nice to have you with us. I hope you're having some solid. No, I can't come up with any funny stuff for the Concrete Foundation. Let me stick to what I'm doing. Elton, you're a franchisee. You're an estate franchise owner. Laura Reuven has a website and a digital magazine for female entrepreneurs. Qengqe, welcome to you. Donnie Nell, you're a Cash Crusaders business development manager. Refilwe Rantokoa of Boroto Bakery in Soweto, a small business that employs 20 employees. Good on you. Armand Meyer, he was retrenched, he says, due to COVID-19, was in the construction industry for the past 8 years. 33 years old, lives in Centurion. Good to have you. Arthur Goldstuck, my good friend, nice to see you, and thank you for the comments with regards to my grooming. I did it for you, Arthur. And who else is there? Kanti Beshe, former finance executive, now in the process of embarking on a franchise ownership journey. Well, listen, thanks for the insights, and really appreciate your messages. Let's start off with a quick poll. I want to know a little bit more about who's on this particular webinar. And how it's going to work is I'm just going to ask a question. You will see that the poll will come up there, you see. Question number one, just to let us know, it's just an idea of your insights and perspectives. So the first question is, where do you stand the best chance of creating wealth? So many of you at the moment, you're here because you want to create wealth, right? Do you think it will be employed in government? And if you look at some of the PPE contracts, hey, it could be a great, no, I'm kidding. And good on our president, by the way, for stamping the ground and, just taking corruption out. Employed in a corporate, do you think that will be a great way of you creating wealth? Employed in a private business? What about starting a business or buying and growing a business? So, buying an existing business, buying a franchise, or buying a lotto ticket. So if you could answer one of those options there, and where do you think you stand the best chance of creating wealth, what would it be for you? I'll give you 2 seconds. Click on the circle of your answer and click on submit, and the answers will come up in just a moment. So give you a few seconds to do that. I'm looking at Pavlo giggling away there, and he's not the guy who's going to buy a lotto ticket. Akhona is not the person who's going to get involved in corporate. You franchise, and I know that you, Sean Stegmann, CEO of Cash Crusaders, I know what your answer is going to be. But yeah, so thank you for submitting your answers. And let me ask one more question, all right? I've got another question that we're going to ask on this poll. There, look at those results, guys. 38% of you say they want to start a business, growing a business, buying a franchise. So you guys have got the entrepreneurial spirit in you. I want to know who said employed in government. But mind you, they could be quite profitable over there. Right, let's get another question up for you very quickly, just to get to know you all. So let's have that second question up on the webinar. There we go. Now, if you were to invest in a franchise, how much accessible income would you be prepared to invest right now? As you're listening to this webinar and you're hearing of ideas, have you got 200 to $500,000 Rand ready to invest? Have you got $500,000 Rand to $1 million Rand to invest? Have you got $1 million to 1.5 million? Or are you really cash flush and you've got over $1.5 million to invest? Like my friend Arthur Goldstuck, he's probably got about 100 million to invest in a franchise. Kidding, Arthur. But how much money have you got in that bank account of yours to invest? Right, give you a few moments to answer those questions, and we'll get to your answers in a moment. So most of you have got from 200 to 500,000, 500 to $1 million, and then up and above $1 million in that. So most people kind of fit into that sweet spot of going up to $1 million Rand. Akhona, for $1 million Rand in South Africa, could you get a decent franchise with a good return?
Absolutely, you can. It depends what you consider a good return. But for actually about 600,000 Rands, you can get a good franchise.
Okay. All right. Now, Pavlo, this has been such an interesting period. You know, I speak to so many different CEOs, and the one common term that people talk about is what seemed impossible became possible. And, you know, despite the negativity that's in the air, there is a lot of opportunity, and we need to look for those opportunities because, you know, through diversity and through change. I mean, change for me is a very positive, you know, it's a very positive thing because change brings out the best in us, and this can, you know, open up many ideas and opportunities. So, talking about re-strategizing, really, and a focus on digitization and e-commerce, we're seeing a lot of that stuff happening right now in business. People refocusing on these most important things, Pav.
Yeah, and it's absolutely critical because if you think about it, the environment has changed. The word crisis means change in state of health. And the opportunity that change brings about is it disrupts the status quo. So if you're a small or medium-sized business and you've been looking to launch new products or get into new markets, and they've been resistant because things were settled and things were established in a normal run rate, the crisis itself has created change. Everyone has expected everything to change, and it's a good time to always introduce new ideas. But the fact of the matter is this: what led to your success pre-COVID has to fundamentally be different to what leads to your success post-COVID. And I was listening to the statements that Sean was making about the digitization elements that they introduced into their service. It's absolutely right. If you can't find your customers and they can't come to you, one of the big changes and one of the big opportunities is to build a business that goes to your customers. Take your business into their homes, onto their phones, into their screens, into their world, into their environment. And actually, it's been fascinating to watch because the businesses that turned around and said, gosh, COVID is here, the lockdown has happened, it's going to be more than 3 weeks. A lot of us predicted that. In that instance, how do we get into the head and heart of our customers through digital devices, whether it be a screen, a Zoom instance, or a WhatsApp? The businesses that embarked on that journey have found themselves on the front foot in this economy where we're already seeing the green shoots of growth starting to emerge.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fascinating. And at the end of the day, what I'm hearing from you there as well, Pavlo, it's all about customer experience. You've got to give the customer what he wants, and you've got to evolve together with the customer and make that experience a wow experience so the customer comes back to you. I mean, Sean, Cash Crusaders, did you guys have to tweak anything in your business? Did you have to change anything? You know, e-commerce, for example, and these kind of things. How did it work for you guys?
E-commerce had been on our radar for quite some time, Aki, so it wasn't something that was new to us.
Yeah.
But what we saw is once the COVID hit, that realignment of strategy and fast tracking that became this. That was the strategic imperative to get the e-commerce going very quickly. And we had done it in a sort of a very low-key way, but we hadn't gone into full click and collect. Now we've got that launched. You know, we're very fortunate is that we own our own developers. So we've got our own software development team, and we've got a point of sale system that we've built over years. And so the point of sale system is a full ERP system. It does stock taking, it does the buying of product, it does the display of those products to the website. So all of that is a very integrated solution. So when a product is bought in a store, and it's now put to the floor, that product appears on our website instantaneously. So you've got that ability of that customer now to go and look at the store, but in a virtual world. So you can browse the store and buy, and then just go to the store and collect the item the next day. And we pride ourselves on using technology to leapfrog the competition. That's what we do.
Oh, that's interesting. So you, at any point, your software that you've developed, you can get a snapshot of exactly what stock is in the business, where you can find it and everything. I think that's great. And, you know, businesses that have invested in digitizing their business and they're applying technology, those are the businesses that are really standing out in this current economy. I'm just looking at some of the questions that we're getting over here. Some great questions, and I'm going to throw them to the group. Here's one for Akhona. What are the golden rules to follow when you're buying a franchise? I mean, what do you look for? Because there's so many franchises out there. What advice can you give to everybody watching this webinar today?
Very good question, Aki. So the first one is to obviously look for a franchise within an industry that you are passionate about, or that you've got some idea or some experience. That's really helpful. But once you've established what that industry looks like for you, is to verify that what you are wanting to buy into is definitely a franchise and not just an operating license, because there is a difference between the two. Is within a franchise business, you get more support. The franchisor will typically help you to find the right location, or they will define for you what an ideal location for you to succeed would be. Within a license, you typically have to do all of that groundwork for yourself and figure out how things work. And within a license as well, there's definitely much less support than would be from a franchisor. Also, a franchise typically would help you with the starting up, setting up, getting your operations in order. First couple of days, you typically have like a franchise business consultant help you run the business. So there's a lot of support. There's also very defined systems and processes within a franchise. So when you're evaluating the brand you're going into, make sure those processes are there and you're not having to go and define your own processes. There's point of sale systems, whatever that looks like, just make sure all of that is in place. Make sure the supplier base is already defined as well, and that there are some discounts you get from being part of the bulk buying system. Also, just understand, and I think a lot of people don't really understand this, understand the fees that you'll be paying on a monthly basis. So what does a royalty cover? Why am I paying a royalty? And how much is my royalty? Is it fixed, or does it vary depending on my turnover? What are the marketing fees you're charging me for, and what do they cover? What can I expect from you as a franchisor to do for me under the marketing fees? Do I still have to do my own marketing, or what does that look like? And how much is it? Is it a fixed fee again, or does it vary depending on the turnover? And then again, just to understand from existing franchisees as well, is what has been their experience with the respective franchisor of the franchise brand that you're wanting to go into, and just get some of that feedback, because it's really helpful. The theoretical part is probably easy to get all of that information, but the proof is in the pudding. And so the more conversations you have with people that are already with the brand or with the particular franchise, that's really helpful to understand if there's a culture fit between you and the franchise as well.
It's such great advice, and so many people make the mistake by thinking, we'll buy a franchise. It's a well-recognized name. People will come in. I don't have to put in as much time into this business because it's going to be generating business automatically. Well, that's so far from the truth. I mean, I'm talking from experience. I have 2 franchises. I'm in the beauty business. I've got a partner, and we have 2 sorbet franchises together. So I'd never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be doing traffic and talking about Hollywood waxes and gelish with women. Never would have imagined that, but I'm doing it, and I love doing it. But I tell you, it's hard work. Now, Pavlo, your business, the advice that you're giving and in your books is incredible, but your other business is Auric. And, I've had many discussions with you. One of the first things that comes is money, capital. Where am I going to get the money to start up? How are banks seeing franchises? Is it easy to get access to capital? What advice do you give to people who say, okay, I want to buy this business. I've got $500,000. The business costs $1.5 million. Where can I get a loan for R1 million to fund this business? What's your take on capital and raising money to buy a business, Pavlo?
Aki, can I just precede that with something that Akhona said that I think is really important? Because I think right now in the economy, we're going to have a lot of people who out of necessity and out of desperation are going to find themselves needing to make good decisions around how they invest into something that will earn income for them. And I think a really important thing to consider about yourself, whoever you may be, is to understand your value, the value that you have as an individual. If you have lost your opportunity in corporate life or in employment, and you're considering finding new economy, either through starting a business or buying a business or investing in a franchise, one of the important things is to look back and see what assets you have on hand. And by that, I don't mean money. I mean relationships, an understanding of an industry or sector. If you're moving into a franchise in a brand new industry that you've had no experience in before, your ability to understand risk in that environment is very different compared to if you move into a franchise that operates in a sector or industry that you're familiar with. So you need to understand the risk when you're going in, and one of the best ways to do it is to try and stay as close to the knitting of your history as possible so you can assess the risk. The second thing is, don't look at a franchise and say, hey, I'm going to go for that one because that one seems to make more money than that other one. First, find one where you have an affinity in the product or service that they offer. If you love the food industry, despite COVID at the moment, and despite what it's done to the food industry, go into the food industry. If you love funding and finance, and if you like trade, then look at Sean, go into a cash crusader environment and consider that. But if you don't have an affinity first for the industry or sector that the franchise sits in, don't simply make a decision to go there because it seems to make money. Akhona's 100% right when she turns around and says, understand what the franchise promises and then understand the reality of what it can deliver. This idea that you acquire a franchise and the franchisor will simply send people into the store, into your service, is not true. The franchisor will always support the brand of the franchise, the underlying systems of the franchise, the supply chain to make sure that you're selling the right thing in the right way at the right time. But a large part of success in a franchise environment is your ability to hunt. And if you don't love what you do and if you don't believe in the service of the franchise, your appetite to go and hunt for business, which is crucial today, won't be there. You will fail. So find something you love before you find the franchise of your choice.
So, Pavlo, are you suggesting that the reason I bought a Sorbet franchise is because I like painting my nails? Is that what you're trying to say to me?
But look how it's improved you compared to what you looked like 20 years ago. You look fantastic now.
Thanks for that. And listen, you didn't touch on the finance yet, and I want to touch on that because we're getting lots and lots of calls about people, how do you access finance? And I want Akhona's thoughts on this as well, because people automatically think that the moment you're buying a franchise that's known, that the bank is going to open the checkbook and give you money to buy that franchise. Talk to us about the money side, Akhona. And, I'm looking at questions here from Maven, from Sandeep, just a lot of people talking about the money. And do banks automatically open up their cash, their checkbooks and say, here's the loan, go and buy the franchise you desire? Capital is the biggest thing and the biggest concern amongst most of the people on this webinar. And thank you, by the way, for answering many of the questions. So if you guys look on that chat channel, Akhona and Pavlo and Sean are answering a lot of the questions. But just talk to us about the money, Akhona.
So, Aki, it's no secret, right, that the franchise business is a highly fundable or bankable model, right, because it's proven, there's a track record. However, you can't walk into a bank and expect the bank to just give you money like that, right? Because when they give you funding, they're exposing themselves to risk because the business may or may not work.
Yes.
It's the same thing with the franchise brand. Is because there's a business model that underpins the goings on of the operations of the business, the franchisor would define how much risk they will allow you to expose yourself to. Therefore, how much gearing you can have in the business. And they would normally define a debt to equity ratio. And they would say, because of the level of risk that is inherent in their business model, they will typically allow you, say, I'm going to use just generic stats. They will allow you to take out 60% funding, and the 40% is going to have to come from your own pocket. Now, this is a function of many factors. For example, how long it's going to take for you to make a return on your initial investment, number one. But also, should the business not meet the turnover targets that have been set up front or any of those assumptions, your ability to bounce back and to carry on with the business. So all of that thinking is built into the then debt to equity ratio. Now, when you go to the bank will only fund you to the extent that the franchisor believes you should be funded. So if the debt to equity ratio requirement from the franchisor side is a 60-40, the bank will not fund you more than 60%. The 40% you unfortunately have to raise on your own. It also means you've got skin in the game, right? Because if you're personally invested in something, the amount of effort that you put in is significantly more than somebody who is not personally invested in that. So unfortunately, the rest of it, you have to fund out of your own pocket. I did say to Kamalo's question when I responded as well, that there's many ways to raise own equity. One of them would be to get together with a group of friends or business partners, and you put your, kind of your, whatever you've got, and you build your own equity, and then you go to the bank. And banks like it when there's more than one of you, because then they're spreading the risk versus kind of putting their eggs in one basket with just the one person. And I think the experience, the collective experience that all of you then bring into that business also makes you highly bankable than just one individual as well. So there's many ways to raise your own equity.
Right. We'll move on, and we'll just go to another question from the poll, and this is a very interesting question. I want everyone to be honest here, and let's open up our next poll question. And this is a question that is quite interesting, where we find ourselves as South Africans in the society today. When you look at the economy, how the economy is faring, where we all find ourselves financially. Now, I want your honesty here. And what skills do you believe will make you a successful franchisee if you were to franchise? Would it be a good business acumen and understanding on how businesses work? Well, you could say, well, I don't need any specific skills because the franchisor will train me up, but I'm prepared to learn and work hard. Or do you think great personal skills, customer experience are important? Or do you believe that your skills that you need to run a successful franchise will lead you to marketing expertise to grow a successful business? What would your answer be in that particular question? Let's see what the answers are. I think the first one should get quite a bit there. Yeah, I thought so. Good business acumen. A lot of people are saying that hard work, absolutely. Great personal skills, customer experience. So interesting. A business acumen. And Pavlo, that's the passion that people talk about. When you talk about business acumen, you talk about entrepreneurship and that spirit, the commitment, the dedication that you talk about. Would you say that makes up a successful person who wants to venture into the franchising world? What would you say the DNA of that person looks like?
You know what, the benefit of a franchise environment is that largely the operating model of the business has already been tested, thought through, and has been put in place. And what I've certainly seen, Aki, around franchisees that have succeeded, they have gone way beyond the promise and hope and expectation of the franchise model. A franchise will help establish a brand, but unless you can actually motivate a team to go out there and bring business into a store or to bring business to you independently of the efforts of the franchisor, then your franchise won't grow. Franchises are built to be able to cope with more and more and more customers, for example. The rest of the operating model to service those customers is largely and should be in place if it's a good franchise with good operating systems. So a key success factor as a franchisee is going to be your ability to sell. And that means you need to understand who you're serving, what problem you're solving for them, where to find them, and not to sit and wait for them to come into your franchise, but to go and bring them into your franchise. If you have those skills, good selling skills, then franchises are very good options for you if they're well-built franchises.
Yeah. I mean, Sean, what do you look for when somebody comes into your office and says to you, hey, Shawnee, I've got the money, give me, I want to open up a Cash Crusaders. You don't accept anybody, right? What are your criteria? What do you look for in that person that you can see the spark to say, this guy is going to be a good franchisee and this guy is going to take my brand, Cash Crusaders, to a new level?
Okay, the first thing we look for, and I interview all of the franchisees that are going to come into our group because we think it's important that you're going to get into a marriage with someone. It's a 10-year franchise agreement. You've got to make sure that the person's coming in, with the right mindset. And the first thing we look for is an owner-operated franchisee. If this franchisee is saying, I want to just be an investor, then that's not the one for a Cash Crusaders because, as much as that person is investing capital with us, there's a thing called sweat equity. And you have to have somebody that wants to work his business because without that owner-operated mentality, it doesn't work in a Cash Crusader. So that's the first thing that we're looking for. And then, we obviously would want to find out what the person's intentions are in terms of how much he would want to take out of the business, how much he'd want to earn. And if those expectations are met, then we would then go into further conversations about site selection with that franchisee. So the big thing that we look for is commitment. We believe we can make anyone a franchisee. We don't think that you have to have any special skills in a Cash Crusaders. We teach everything about that. I want to refer back to something Akhona said about what the franchisor must offer you, the franchisee. And she was talking about the marketing. For us, yes, that is important. We've got a very strong brand. Our signs on the doors are very brand positive. Customers know when you open a Cash Crusaders what we do. So there's a very strong brand marketing perspective to our business. But what's equally important is the operational support you give that franchisee. So we've got a very big operations team that I call them financial advisors to the franchisees, because that's what they are there for. And then the training that you give those franchisees. Our training is very intense. You only can make as good a franchisee as you train that person up in your business. So that's what we look for when we bring in a franchisee in.
Interesting. And do you turn a lot of people away, honestly?
It would really, the turn away is when someone says, I want to be an investor franchisee and not going to work it himself. That's a box that we would tick or put a cross in. And when there isn't the capital to invest. And if I go into that, we understand that when someone's investing in a business of Cash Crusaders or any franchise, particularly with us, is we're very sensitive about the money that person's putting in. It's his hard-earned capital that he's investing. And when we look at sites, we almost take a view that if we were investing our own money, would that be the site that we're going to put that money in? And then we go into that relationship with a franchisee. And what we offer is a turnkey solution to the franchisees. So we have some other value adds that we offer franchisees. So we offer them a startup assistance loan of 300,000 Rand, which is an interest-free loan that we don't know any other franchise outfit offers. And a Cash Crusader store is typically it's about 3 million Rand, to have a fully kitted out Cash Crusaders. Then we also then ask that person if they've got their own contribution, which is about 1.5 million of their own. And then we assist with securing, through the banks, the remaining funds that they would be required to get.
Very interesting.
And one of the big things about us is we don't, for the first 10 months, take any royalties or marketing from the franchisee. So we give him a 10-month royalty and marketing break, which allows that franchisee to get traction. And we also offer them a new goods stock facility of 150,000 Rands as well to get them going. So, it really goes down to what does the franchisor assist the franchisee with that gets him out the starting blocks. And we do quite a comprehensive job of that.
And that's such an important thing, Akhona, that you need to ask that franchisor in the beginning, because I tell you, the first few months of any business are tough. What are you going to do for me to get me off the ground? Because you obviously have to have the working capital and that sort of thing. But I mean, it's interesting to hear what Cash Crusaders do for new franchisees. It's a great conversation to have with a franchisor when you are buying a franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of the questions you want to go through, because it can be telling, right, what the franchisor expects from you up front. Some franchisors will charge you fees that you don't even understand. There'll be a royalty, an upfront, a sign-on fee, all of those things. You need to understand exactly what you're buying into, because that tells you a lot about the type of business that you're going into.
Okay. Francois Roux, I hope we can hear you now. Let's test. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm sure you can, Aki. Wonderful.
There we go. Much better. So, Francois, you got 5 Cash Crusader businesses. How are you finding the franchise, and what's been your experience? And you can be honest over here. We'll mute Sean, eh?
You can't mute his ears, can you? Aki, I can remember starting my first franchise 19 years ago when I bought into the business, and you asked about the strategic decisions at franchisor, spilling down to the franchisee, how it works. But I can remember that startup like yesterday, and really because of the relationships that were established so early on. You see, as a franchisee, you're immediately looking for support. You need to understand the brand. You want to You want to buy into the culture, and that needs to be established. And then in this new environment, you need advice on setup. You've never done this before, and the operations guy is right there next to you to help it. But then you start your business, and you also need financial advice, how to go forward, understand the business model. So we get, Cash Crusaders, they will even go as far as appointing financial advisors to help us, understanding the reports, the projections.
That's fantastic.
Ideas to grow your business and to find new ways to create revenue within your business. But then you've started and you're into the business, and you need to continue. And then a franchisee needs, you need ongoing training. You need to understand the systems and all the different processes. We get that training either remotely, where we go to a training facility, or the training is in the physical environment in your business where somebody comes to you. But then you need access to marketing support, and this is so important. And on business innovations, Sean spoke earlier on about our recent moving into using WhatsApp and e-commerce. And just in the past 2 weeks, we realized the importance of Facebook Marketplace and our role in the Facebook Marketplace. And then for an older guy like me, that's a long-standing franchisee. That's a new environment. But even that, we got on top of it, and we making good money off that already. Was your hair darker 19 years ago? A lot. You should have seen the beard after lockdown. It's totally grown.
Well, listen, what an amazing success story. 5 franchisees. Patrick Masubelele, you have a Cash Crusader store in Soshanguve. How did that come about, Patrick?
Good morning, Aki. I started with Cash Crusaders as a salesperson about 20 years ago. No? And then we appreciate and understood from the first conversation with Cash Crusaders that to get the store up and running and trading efficiently in a shortest amount of time, we needed to do things properly. So meaning we have to do our due diligence, not only on the financial part of it, but also on the location that we choose, the level of training we needed to do, the research on the community we were servicing. We were never alone in this. We had the support from our ops managers, the franchisor as well. And so we started with what we could, and then we took our business to the next level.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for those wonderful words and testaments. And I guess what both Patrick and France were saying is that it's not just about Cash Crusaders per se. Listen to what they said. That kind of support that your franchisor needs to give you is critical to your success. And these are the kinds of questions you should be asking whatever business you decide to go into. And speaking of business, I've got time for another poll here. If you took your money, and those of you who are here, it means that you're interested in franchising, right? If you had to invest right now in a franchise business, which sector would you consider? Would it be automotive products and services? Would it be building and home maintenance? Big business that. Would it be child education and training? Fast food and restaurants? Would it be health and beauty services like I did? Would it be real estate? I see we got someone in the real estate industry here. Would it be retail, like a convenience store, for example? Or would you be buying a franchise that does business-to-business supplies? What would you consider, and where would you invest your money if you looked at those different sectors in the franchise sector? Give you a few moments, and I'm going to come to Akhona after this and ask her about the sectors that are flying at the moment and where the questions are. You did mention the food business, Akhona, but let's just have a look at the answers that come up there after you've all submitted your questions. And by the way, you can all go to FASA, fasa.co.za, if you want any more information. But look at that, most of you say a fast food business or a restaurant is the right one there. Health and beauty services, convenience stores, and retail is there. Are you finding, Sean, that a lot of people during this economy, right, are people coming into your businesses and saying, hey, Sean, I've come to Cash Crusaders and I want to sell this to you and I want to buy something else. Are you finding that as in this economy, people are walking into Cash Crusaders and really selling stuff for cash? Because the economy is tight, let's be honest.
Yeah, Aki, we've been quite surprised by how slow the buy shops have been. We call it our buy shops where we buy in, have been to sort of get to year-on-year growth.
Yes.
We've seen a lot more people buying, from us as opposed to selling to us. And we've seen a lot of that movement in our new goods. And we think there's good reason for that, is that people are spending a lot more time at home. So you're possibly working from home now, and you want to pretty up your home and make it look more, presentable and more desirable for you. So so we've seen a lot more of the buying. We think that the selling is there. It's slow, but it will come back. I think payment holidays have given people, sort of like a reprieve. And I think in people have had more money than they would have had pre the lockdown. And so our second-hand business is a resilient business. It'll always be there. We think that you've got to be, like Pavlo had said, was where you've got to be doing that selling. It's exactly that. We're now looking at like Facebook Marketplace with WhatsApp buying, where you go into the customer's home virtually, you buy the item and you go to his house and collect it from him, as opposed to him coming to the store. So that old adage of the mountain won't come to Muhammad. Muhammad has to go to the mountain.
Exactly.
That's the sweat we need to put our efforts into.
But I mean, you guys at Cash Crusaders have done some interesting things. I mean, you've even launched your own smartphone brand. I've got your, I think it's one of the Doogie ones that I interviewed on Technobyte a while back. So it's interesting how a brand like Cash Crusaders is diversifying. And, I mean, who would have thought you'd be in the smartphone industry as well, which I find quite interesting. And they're good quality phones and they're great value for money. So fantastic. Now, Akhona, were you surprised at the answers that came up there from the people investing in different franchises and the sectors that they would be investing in?
Absolutely not. I mean, we all know the fast food still contributes about a quarter of the entire franchise sector. So honestly, I expected those kind of results. But I think what's actually starting to emerge now is this child education, specifically these homeschooling sort of facilities that have started franchising as well. I guess given what we've just now gone through with children doing online learning, a lot of parents are saying, do I actually need my child in a school environment? Can I not just opt for online schooling rather as a formal curriculum? So we're seeing that pick up. Dry cleaning is also quite a big one, especially in your big metropolitans where people don't have time to do their own laundry. And it's also quite an easy access point from a finance point of view. I think beauty, Aki, you would agree, is also quite a big one. And we've actually seen quite an upswing post-lockdown or post kind of the very, restricted environment with people just wanting to get out and look their best self again. Real estate was a good one pre-COVID. I think that tide has, quickly just turned now. We're yet to see what's going to happen in the long term, but landlords are struggling to fill buildings. A lot of people are actually giving away their leases because, suddenly they can work remotely and therefore they don't need to be in a physical building. People are not buying homes as much as they were. People are, I guess, contemplating what their future looks like and if they need to be investing in property going forward. People are losing jobs and therefore they're not going to commit themselves to 20 or 30-year mortgages, etc. So I would say real estate for me is probably the one that's a bit iffy. Definitely childcare online, dry cleaning, beauty, easily accessible from a funding point of view as well. Fast food is always going to be a winner.
Great stuff. Well, listen, a lot of people are asking the website, if you want more information, it's cashcrusaders.co.za. That's where you go, cashcrusaders.co.za. FASA is the organization that Akhona represents, the Franchising Association of South Africa. That's fasa.co.za. Now, Pavlo, you've been listening to all of this and you've been looking at those businesses that people are thinking of investing in. As a business guru, the big mistakes that people make, what are they? What would you say is when people go into business, they might go in initially with the right intention, but then it goes horribly wrong. And we see this happening so often, Pavlo. What are those mistakes that people make, that people on this webinar must be very wary of?
Probably one of the biggest mistakes is an inability to understand two things, or insufficient research to understand two things. There are two things that lead to success. The first is you need to understand who your customer is. And, Aki, the world of marketing is in disarray at the moment for very, very many reasons. But when I meet business owners and I say, who do you serve? And they say, corporates. So, okay, what is a corporate? Well, what do you mean, what is a corporate? It's a very large business. Okay, but is it in the mining sector? Is it in hospitality? Who is your customer? Because the extent to which you can understand your customers, the extent to which you can have and provide a useful service, something that solves a problem. So if you understand who it is that you need to reach in order to get business done, what is the problem they're solving? Can you see yourself fixing that problem? That's the first thing you need to get right in your head. Then the second thing is every business has an operating model. Every business has to market, you have to sell, you have to service, you've got to fulfill, you've got to administer, you've got to look after people. If you understand the 2 or 3 levers of growth in whatever business, industry, or sector you're in, and you understand your customers and where to find them and how to engage them, if you can get those 2 elements clear in your mind before you make an investment in either a franchise or buying a business or even starting a business, if you can get that part sorted, then you will set yourself apart from 95% of all businesses out there. Because getting that right means you know how to invest your time and focus your attention. And to me, those are the 2 key elements of success.
That's awesome. Thank you, Pav. Hey, Sean, I was just on your Cash Crusaders site now, just having a look. It's unbelievable. You guys have got 225 stores across the country. That's quite astonishing. One of the questions here comes from Laura about the state of female entrepreneurship. Akhona, female entrepreneurship, is it real in the franchise industry? Is it like growing at a rapid pace? Are we seeing a lot of female entrepreneurs? I certainly am, and I guess in the different sectors, in beauty, for example, there are more female entrepreneurs there. But what about female entrepreneurship is the question that comes in from Laura.
Unfortunately, Aki, it's not picking up as quickly as we'd like it to pick up. I think right now what we see is it's still very focused on specific sectors. For example, beauty, you mentioned. But yes. I think in the more kind of male-dominated traditional industries, we don't see a lot of females taking that on. And also what we're seeing with females is they tend to operate in the secondary economy, with businesses that are not really recognized or registered, very formal kind of trading. We see them play in that space, but definitely we don't see them kind of picking up in other sectors beyond beauty and maybe fast food here and there. And it's a great opportunity for franchisors as well, because where we do see female franchises, the businesses tend to do a lot better, especially with the people-facing sort of businesses as well.
Words of wisdom I'm going to ask each of you in closing, because we've reached already our time up at 12 o'clock. And it's just been such a great hour pertaining to franchising, investing in a business, doing the right things. And the experts have been absolutely amazing. And I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us and our audience. I mean, you guys have been amazing. The questions that have come through, and thank you to our panelists who've taken time out to answer the questions. But I'm going to give each of our panelists an opportunity on closing off with the words of wisdom. If I had to meet either you, Sean, or you, Pavlo, or you, Akhona, in the street, and I said to you, hey, I've got this money, I want to invest in a franchise or a business, what words of wisdom would each of you give me to do with that money and how responsible I should be? So, who wants to go off for that words of wisdom one? I know Pavlo's just gearing up, and look at that smile of his, and get his new book as well. It's fantastic. But Pavlo, your words of wisdom.
You need to have passion and purpose. So let's understand what that means. Passion means you believe in the business you're going into. You have an affinity for the customer, whatever that customer is. You have an affinity for the product. You have an affinity for the service. And the reason, Aki, that is so important is because you can be guaranteed that it's going to be a lot harder than you think. The revenues and the turnover that you expect in the first year will be half of what you get, and the costs will probably be double that. If you don't have passion, you won't make it. Then you need purpose. And purpose is answering this question: why am I doing what I'm doing? If it's to make an income, understand that. If it's to make wealth, in other words, build a business that can of a day be sold, so you can create a wealth opportunity for yourself, understand that, and then find the appropriate opportunity to match those two things.
Fantastic. Love your advice, Pav. Thank you very much. Akhona, as the Franchising Association of South Africa chair lady, what are your words of wisdom?
Very quickly, Aki, I would say regardless of what business you decide to go into or you decide to invest your money in, go into it with a long-term approach. There are no silver bullets in business. When you go in, do not draw money from the business early on. Do not expect the business to solve all of your financial problems from day one. Give it time, have a long-term view to it, have a sustainability view as you go into the business, and make sure your debt is paid up before you start living off the business. That's, for me, that's where I've seen the most success.
That's fantastic advice. Sean Stegmann, CEO of Cash Crusaders. I mean, your franchisees and the two gents that joined us earlier, they've been with you guys for 20 years. That speaks volumes of your business. As CEO of Cash Crusaders, what is the advice that you give? What are your words of wisdom to people who want to get in the industry, who have got money to invest? What do you advise them?
So in South Africa, we need to create jobs. We're losing jobs. We lost 3 million that they said between March and now. And, as a franchisee, you'd be getting into business, becoming an entrepreneur. You're creating wealth for yourself, but you're also creating employment. And that employment creates the multiplier effect that everybody then, is spending money back in your store. So, it's for me, you're a franchisee, you get into business for yourself, but you actually are creating jobs, and that's what this country really needs right now. And franchising, fortunately, is one of the avenues that can offer that.
Fantastic, Sean. And if people want to get in touch with you guys, they head off to cashcrusaders.co.za. All the information is on the website. And from my point of view, I'm also a franchisee of a business. The best advice I can give is love what you do, as Sean has said, as Pavlo has said, as Akhona has said. Go into it and really have a passion for what you're about to sell and the people and the customers that you're going to interact with, and don't be afraid of hard work. It's not a business that is simply going to run on its own because it's a franchise. You have to put in that hard work yourself, but really love what you do, love the brand, do the research. I tell you, I spent months and months doing research on asking people, asking other owners of businesses. So phone Francois, phone Patrick, ask them, is Cash Crusaders a good business? Ask for that advice. So, Sean and Pavlo, you guys have been absolutely awesome, and Akhona as well. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you very much to all the people who have joined us on this particular webinar. We wish you all a wonderful day, great success. Check it out. Visit the websites, cashcrusaders.co.za and fasa.co.za and oric.co.za if you need to get hold of Pavlo as well. And you've got some great tips and some great interviews on YouTube as well, Pav, that I find very, very helpful. So to all of our special guests, thank you for joining us. I wish you well, and I wish you every success in your businesses and your lives going forward. Thank you for joining us. And this has been an absolute pleasure to be on this webinar, which has been hosted and sponsored by Cash Crusaders. Thank you for joining us.